Hello guys, and welcome back to another tutorial. So in today's video we're going to be making this dress. If that sounds like something you're interested in, do keep on watching and let's get right into the video. So this dress is going to be made by freehand, meaning you are not going to need a pattern for this. So if you're a beginner, this tutorial will be perfect for you. Let's get right in. So guys, I have my fabric here on fold, and the length we're working with is 33 inches. This is because we're going to be having a plain fabric at the bottom part to complement the design we're trying to achieve. So now I'm going to go ahead to mark out 33 inches and rule a straight line at that point. After ruling this out, we're going to rule our shoulder measurement, and we're going to be having our sleeve joined together with the dress. So we're going to take our shoulder measurement. What I have for mine was 32 inches, divided by 2 is 16 inches. So I'm going to go ahead to mark that out here. Now I'm going to go ahead to take the measurement all the way down, and then I'm going to rule a straight line just to mark out where my sleeve is going to end. So after marking that out, I'm going to rule a line all the way down, and then I'm going to move on to ruling out my lines just so I know where my measurements are to sit. So I'm going to mark out my bust point line, my under bust line, my waist line, and my hip line. So I'm going to mark this out and rule a straight line so you know where those lines are positioned. Now I'm going to go ahead to mark out my neckline opening. I'm going to mark out 3 inches for the width, and for the depth I'm going to mark out 1 inch all the way down, and this is because we are drafting the back piece, so we're going to use the back piece to draft the front piece. So I went ahead to curve that out, and then from this point I'm coming down by 1 inch because our shoulders are not straight, so I'm just trying to create that slant effect on this point here. Now I'm going to start fixing in my body measurements. I'm going to fix in my bust measurements divided by 4. I'm going to go ahead to mark that out, and then I'm going to mark out my under bust measurements divided by 4, as well as my waist measurements divided by 4. My under bust and my waist are actually the same measurements, so I'm just going to take what I have there back to the waistline area. So after I'm done marking this out, I'm going to go ahead to mark my hip measurements divided by 4. Next, I'm going to go ahead to mark out the opening of my sleeve, and I'm going to be working with 10 inches. From the 1 inches we went down by, I'm going to mark out 10 inches. This is just based on my own preference. So I'm going to go ahead to mark this out, and then from this opening we have here, from this point here, we're just going to create sort of like a curve to meet with our body measurement we had initially marked out, adding in a bit of an allowance at the sides there. So please take note that I already went ahead to add in 2 inches extra allowance to my body measurement while marking this out. So now after marking out everything, I'm going to go ahead to add ½ inch at the top here just for joining allowance. So I'm going to mark out ½ inches for our joining allowance at this point here, and then I'm going to rule a line for them to meet with each other and making sure that everything is accurate. After marking everything out, we're just going to go ahead to cut this out. After cutting our back piece, I went ahead to use that to cut out another fabric that is going to be serving as the front piece. So we're setting the back piece aside and we're going to work on the front piece. Now for the front piece, we're going to have sort of like a black yoke for the upper part. So I'm just going to go ahead to mark 9.5 inches at this point, and we're using 9.5 inches because I'm not working with a lot of dark fabric. And then from this point here, I'm going to also go down by 10 inches. After coming down by 10 inches, we're just going to, from that 10 inches mark, curve this to meet with the 9.9 inches I had marked out initially. Like I said, you can go longer than 9.5. I went ahead to do this because I was not working with enough of the black fabric I had. So I'm just going to curve this out, and after curving this out, we're going to move on to cut this out. But before cutting this out, we're going to go ahead to add half inches joining allowance at the top part here. So I'm just curving out half inches added to the initial line we had ruled out. So we're going to move on to cut this out from the half inches mark we made. You can see it at this point here, so we're going to be cutting from that point there. After cutting out the yoke area, we're going to go ahead to mark out 6 inches, and you can see that my tape is not starting from the bottom part, but we're also taking in consideration that we've already taken out 1 inch at the top. So I went ahead to mark out 6 inches and I ruled the line to meet back with the top of our neckline. So I'm going to go ahead to cut this out, and this is how our front piece is going to be looking like. After cutting this out, I'm going to bring in my black fabric. So I have my fabric here on fold, and I'm placing down the yoke we had cut out from our main fabric piece, and I'm just going to set this in place, and we're going to go ahead to cut this out, making sure we leave half inch around the fabric we're cutting. After cutting, this is what we have, and you would need 2 pieces of this. One is going to serve as the main fabric and one as the lining piece. So this is what we have. I went ahead to lay down the plain fabric, and I'm going to be placing the one serving as the lining piece on top of that. After placing this down, we are going to go ahead to sew. So we are going to be sewing at the neck area on this point here, all the way to this point and back to the top part here. So I'm going to go ahead to sew this and give it a good press. After sewing and giving everything a good press, this is what is looking like. I went ahead to stitch on this part so nothing moves in any direction. So this is what it's looking like. Now I'm going to open up my front fabric piece, and this is what it is looking like. I'm going to lay this down, and I'm going to create a notch at the midpoint here. I also created a notch on the yoke part here. This is going to enable us fix this on our main fabric piece better. Now I'm going to go ahead to pin this down. After pinning this down, we're going to go ahead to sew this all the way to the top by half an inch, and then after sewing, we're going to flip it to the other side and do the same thing. So this is what we have after we were done sewing this to the top. I'm going to go ahead to flip this to the other side and pin this the same way we did for the opposite side. We're going to pin this down and take this to the machine to sew by half an inch. So now we're going to go ahead to stitch this down the way we did for the opposite side. After stitching that down, this is what it's looking like. As you can see, I went ahead to top stitch on the Ankara area all the way down, just to hold everything in place. So this is what the front piece is looking like. So what we're going to do next is attach the plain fabric to the bottom part here. So I went ahead to cut out this plain fabric on fold. This is about 4.5 inches, and like I said, I'm working with limited amount of fabric, but you can make yours slightly longer than this. So I'm going to go ahead to place it at the bottom part and pin this down as usual, and then we're going to take this to the machine to sew. Now we're going to sew a straight stitch all the way to the bottom part here. After sewing, this is what we have. You can go ahead to top stitch the way we did for the top part, or give it a good press. I'm going to set this aside and we're going to work on our back piece. So this is the back piece. I went ahead to add the black plain fabric to the bottom part, and for the top here I went ahead to cut lining piece for it. This is the lining piece. We're going to go ahead to place this down, right sides facing each other, and then we're going to sew at that top part there. So I'm placing this right sides facing each other, and we're going to sew from this point here, and we're going to take it all the way to the other side, and then create notches so the fabric relaxes properly, and give it a good press. So you can see that I already went ahead to fix in the plain fabric at the bottom the way we did for the front. So now we're going to take this to the machine to sew, and after sewing, this is what we have. I'm now creating notches at the sides just so the fabric relaxes properly, and then we're going to go ahead to iron this. After giving it a good press, we're going to bring in the front piece to join them by the shoulders. So I'm placing this down, right sides facing each other, and we're just going to hold the shoulder part like this, and then I'm going to take the lining piece for the back and flip it over to the front like this, and then we're just going to hold everything in line and sew by 1/2 inch all the way down. So we're going to do that and do the same thing for the opposite side as well. After doing that, this is what our dress is looking like so far. Moving on, we're going to go ahead to fix the plain fabric to the sleeve as well. So this is the plain fabric, the same one we used for the bottom of the dress. We're just going to open this up, and then we're going to place this down. We're going to go ahead to sew by 1/2 inch on both sides. After sewing, now we're going to focus on fixing the pockets for our dress. So we're going to go ahead to, from the shoulder part here, I'm going to mark 15.5 inches. So I'm just going to place my tip and mark 15.5 inches here. So from that point where I marked 15.5 inches, we're just going to go down from that point and mark 6 inches for the opening of our pockets. After cutting that out, I went ahead to cut out this fabric, and this is 9 by 9 inches. So this is what we're going to use to cut out our pockets. What I'm going to do from this point here, I'm going to mark 6 inches from this point here, and after marking that, we're just going to create a curve. So you can see the way I'm moving with the chalk here. I'm just creating a curve all the way to the other side like this, and after that we're going to go ahead to cut it out. You can see that I use my hands as a sort of like a template to know how the size of the pocket is going to be. So I'm going to go ahead to cut this out. After cutting out the pocket, we're going to go ahead to fix it. This is the pocket point. I'm just going to align everything so that everything at this point here is equal. And after making sure everything is equal, I'm going to go ahead to hold the back piece and the front piece together and create a notch, so the start and the end of our pocket is visible. So I'm going to go ahead to create a notch at the bottom part here as well. Now I'm going to go ahead to bring in our pockets, and we're going to align this right sides facing each other. So this is one piece of our pocket. I'm going to place this right sides facing each other. You can see that the part that is outside here is the wrong side, and then I'm going to go ahead to pin this down. After pinning this down, we're going to go ahead to sew by 1/2 inch on this side as well as the other side. After joining the pockets to the dress, we're going to go ahead to top stitch on the pocket side. As you can see, we're going to top stitch on this side just to hold the pocket down in place. After stitching down each pocket pieces, this is what we have so far. Now we're going to go ahead to join the sides of our dress. So we're going to align everything properly and sew this by 1/2 inch all the way. So I'm just using my chalk to show you how we're going to be sewing this all the way to the very end. So you're going to take it across the pocket like this and then take it all the way down. After sewing the same thing on both sides, you can go ahead to overlock any rough edges you might have, and then we are done with our dress. So this is what our dress is looking like. If you enjoyed watching this tutorial and you found it helpful, do not forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not yet subscribed already, and I will see you on another video. Bye guys.